G'day viewers, this is a tank I've wanted to build for a very long time to keep a species I've wanted for a very long time, some Apistogramma. So I decided to go with a Blackwater setup. So I'll show you how I did all the botanicals, how I put the tank together and how I did some custom lighting. So stay tuned.
I really love watching videos of our aquarium fish in their natural habitat, particularly the South American stuff that I like to keep. So I watch a lot of channels like Below Water with Oliver Lucanis and Project Piaba, and these show the fish in their natural habitat, and that's the kind of look I want to go for with this tank. And for inspiration, I've been watching my mate Huss from Tropical Fish Hub, who's got some awesome Blackwater tanks and explains how it all works and how to look after the botanicals. So this is the tank. That's a DIY 3D background that I made, and if you want to know how I made it, I'll put that video up at the end and down below. So after you finish watching this video and then telling all your mates how good it was and that they should watch it too, you'll be able to watch that and see how I made this background. But for now, let's add some botanicals. So I put a bit of a shout out a while ago. I wanted some oak leaves and some maple leaves, and one of my long-time viewers sent her husband straight down to the botanical gardens down in Portland and got some for me. So Mum, thanks for that. And to add to the list of my botanicals, I went for a bit of a wander myself and found some Currajong trees. So I thought we'll grab a few of those pods because they will look pretty cool in our setup. Now back home to my place, and I have a few balar trees growing here. These are a casuarina species, and they have these tiny cool little seed pods which make great botanicals, and also those needles. They don't have leaves, they have needles, and we'll grab a few of those as well. So we'll fill the bucket up with a few. Now that we have some balar pods and needles, we'll get something that'll look a little bit different and it'll last a long time in the water, and that's some jacaranda seed pods from those trees just there. So let's wander over and grab some. So now that we have our jacaranda pods, there's just one more item I need to collect, and that's a few sticks, because under every dead tree you're going to have a few sticks laying in the water. So we'll just grab a few of these twigs, nothing too big, just enough to lay on the bottom for a bit of interest. So it's into the kitchen, and I'm going to boil these botanicals. It'll soften them up a bit, get them ready to go. It'll kill anything nasty on there. Not that I'm really too worried, I generally just soak things overnight. But I'm going to boil these because I don't want a really dark Blackwater tank. The Apistogramma species I intend on keeping, they're not a Blackwater fish, so we're going to boil the absolute crap out of this to get those tannins out. So we'll let it boil away for 15-20 minutes till the water gets dark, and then we'll tip that water out and replace it. Through the magic of television, 20 minutes have gone by, and have a look at the colour of that water, all of those tannins leaching out of that pods. So we'll tip this water out, put some fresh water in, bring it up back to the boil and go again. After another half an hour, time to rinse and repeat. So another 30 or so minutes. We're still getting tannins out, but nowhere near like we were at the beginning. So this will probably do for these guys, and we'll move on to the next ones. So we'll give all the other pods, and of course Mum's leaves, the same treatment. We'll just boil the tannins out of them, and then we'll throw them in a bucket, let them soak there overnight, leach anything else out, and they're all nice and soft and a lot less tannins, and we're all ready to go and put into the tank. Now you could carefully position each leaf and each seed pod or stick into the perfect place where it's going to look fantastic, or you can just do what I do and just throw it all in, because that's pretty much what happens in nature. Now, because this is a brand new tank, I'm going to throw everything all in one go. If it was an existing tank that you already had fish in, you're probably going to want to add just a few at a time, because once it starts breaking down, you've got all that bacteria. It's going to suck some oxygen out of the water, and it's potentially probably going to change the pH a bit. So if you already got fish in there, just add a bit at a time, steady. Now, because this is going to be home to a breeding pair of Apistogramma, we are going to need some caves for them to hide in, and what's better to use for that than a coconut. So we're just going to chop off all that excess fur or hair or whatever you want to call it from the outside and make some caves. Let's go. So the first step in concocting our coconut caves, we need to get that coconut water out. So the largest of those three eyes is generally the softest, so using a drill bit or a sharp knife like I'm using here, we're going to punch a bit of a hole so we can access that water. Now, most people will tip this out. They'll tip it in a glass and drink it or use it for something, or just tip it out in the sink. But instead of doing that, I've been told this is the best way to go, and let's find out. So we're going to tip a little bit of rum in there and mix it with the water. Now simply add a straw and a nice little umbrella, and we'll see what it tastes like. So now that we are suitably refreshed, let's get down to making this cave. So we're going to find the rough center line and just keep tapping that round and round with a hammer, and eventually we'll begin to get a small hairline crack, and then we'll just keep going round and round and round, expanding that crack until we can break the coconut in half. That'll give us a nice natural edge. It won't be cut, it won't look straight or man-made. And once we have a decent crack all the way around, peel it open. Beautiful. Very simple. And the easiest way I've found to get the meat out, instead of trying to pull it out a piece at a time, we'll zap it in the microwave for a minute or a minute and a half, and that'll soften it up, and it should come out fairly easily. And it's just a matter of getting a bread knife and just working our way around, getting in behind it to separate it from the outer shell. And once we've had the knife all the way around behind it, it'll pop out just like that. So there we have a cave without an entrance. So to let our little fishies get in and out, and I wanted to make it look fairly natural, so I didn't want to drill a hole with a hole saw or a spade bit. So I'm just using some multi-grips, and I'll just break a piece away to make an entrance. That way it won't be uniform, and hopefully it'll look fairly natural. Then I'll just grab a file and just take off any sharp edges. And as with all the other botanicals, we'll give it a boil. It'll remove a lot of those tannins, and because I bought these in a shop, they could be covered in anything, so it'll help with any contamination. And add them to the tank. And so we'll put them on opposite sides with the openings facing away so they can't see each other in their own little cave, and apparently that might save a little bit of drama later on. Well, now that the botanicals are added to our botanical aquarium, it's time to install some hardware. So to filter this aquarium, I'm going to use one of these cheap little Chinese filters. I have one on the tank next door, and the shelf was big enough for two. So to jumpstart the cycle, I'm just going to swap one of the new sponges out of the new filter with one of the old sponges out of the old filter, which will be very well seasoned, full of bacteria, and it'll give us a nice jump start. So because my air loop is connected up to my emergency battery backup system, when the power goes out, even tanks with canister filters still have an air line in there. So I think this might be an opportunity for today's top tank tip.
So using air to move water around the aquarium is very efficient and very effective, and it helps break that surface tension for the gas exchange. And so generally in the past, we've just used a little air stone. But if you're anything like me, I don't really like the look of the bubbles in a natural tank, and that noise drives me absolutely crazy. So what we're going to do today, I have a 3/4 or 19 mil garden poly fitting and some garden poly pipe. First off, measure the height of the tank, take off enough for the elbow, which brings us to about there, and we'll cut it on a bit of an angle so we don't end up with a flat surface down the bottom, stopping the water come up. So the idea is, air will go down this tube, and as the air comes back up, it'll bring water with it, moving the water. So now for the elbow, we're going to drill a little hole big enough for the air line to go down inside. Just like that, not too hard at all. And then, here's the fiddly part. We just feed that air line down inside that hole. Ideally, we'll clean the hole a little bit better, but there we go. Simple. Damn it on there, that's the simplest DIY air tube you'll probably ever see. So we just adjust the hose so the air is going to go up the pipe, and the further we pull that air line up, the less the air has to travel and the less water it will move. And if for whatever reason you want to use a smaller pipe like 13 mil or 1/2 inch, if you run the air line down inside, it'll still work, it just won't move as much water because there's not a lot of difference between the air line and the inside diameter of the pipe, and it might gurgle a little bit more. So for that, I run the pipe down the outside and use one of these little 4 mil barbed elbows, and that just pushes in the end of the pipe there, and it'll do the exact same thing. So we've got the microphone up there nice and close. So let's see what start off with a normal air stone. And that noise just keeps me awake at night. I do not like it at all. And now we'll try the air tube. And as you can see, it's moving a fair amount of water there and making hardly any sound at all. And that concludes today's top tank tip.
And now, because some joker forgot to turn on the autofocus, you'll just have to imagine that's what it looks like plumbed in the corner there. So if the power goes out, we'll always have water movement in the tank. Now for the lid, this is just a sheet of twin wall polycarbonate that they use for things like greenhouses and skylights and stuff. So I'm just going to mark out where I need to cut the corners out to fit the inlet and the outlet of the canister filter, and then I'll put a mark where those braces are, and then drill 2 holes just inside those braces with a hole saw. What's that for, you ask? Well, it's to grow some plants. Because there's not going to be many plants in the tank, I thought it'd be a good opportunity. We'll grow some on top. And the choice for this plant is a shout out to my good mate Paul, the big fish lad, who cops a lot of flack online for his love of variegated peace lily or spathiphyllum. Now this variety is Domino, and I just love it. I love a variegated plant, and this variegated peace lily is one of my favourites. So they just sit in those baskets, and then we fill it up full of lecker balls. And they just fit over the top like that. So if the bottom of the pot in the water, the lecker balls, the clay will wick the water up, so the plant will always have damp roots. Now we need to pause the build for a moment because the first group of fish have arrived, and we have some nice little glow light tetras. They're looking a little bit ordinary from their big trip home, a bit stressed out, but 5 hours in a truck with me is enough to stress anybody. So we'll let them rest, and hopefully they colour up in the next few days. And just a few short days later, they're all settled in, they're nice and happy and relaxed, and they've coloured right up. And when there's a few more tannins in the water, that orange stripe really glows. Beautiful. Rightio, back to the build.
So right about now, new viewers to the channel are probably thinking, well, that light looks fantastic, that shimmer effect, it looks so natural. That light must have cost an absolute fortune. Well, regular viewers of the channel will know that couldn't be further from the truth. So let's see how we put this one together.
So for this one, because we have the plants above the tank as well, I wanted a nice high light, and it'll also help give us that shimmery water effect from the water surface movement. So I've gone with a LED GU10 downlight, and to get that look I want, the colour temperature is 6500, which is a daylight, and it was just a matter of moving it up and down to see where I liked it and where it's going to look the best. And instead of sticky taping it to the ceiling, I thought, well, a nice bracket might be in order, so I bent up a piece of 15mm or 1/2 inch PVC, just put a 90-degree bend in it with a nice curve there, and that should sit there pretty well, I think. So I screwed a GU10 socket into an end cap, a 15mm end cap for that PVC, so it should look all nice and neat and pretty. And our globe will screw in there, and then we'll run the wire down the inside of the pipe. And with a little hole down at the base of the pipe, we can feed up the power wire to it. Now with the wires all soldered up and insulated, this is what we've come up with, and it looks alright, but it's shooting a fair bit of light out the side there, so I think we might need some sort of shroud to direct the light down.
So for those of you that saw my temporary tank Catfish Castle river style scope build, you would have seen that for the shrouds for these little downlights, I used beer bottles and then cut the bottom out, and they turned out pretty well, but unfortunately it was a lot of hard work to get those beer bottles, and it took a long time to recover, so I think I'm going to go in a different direction this time. So for this build, I've decided to go with good old baked beans, because that downlight will fit just inside that tin there, and I think it'll look good, and it'll be a lot easier than the beer bottles. Now viewers, there's a lot of benefits of going with the baked beans over the beer bottles. Well, for one, that's a lot cheaper than having to buy beer. Baked beans aren't very expensive at all. Two, I didn't need to call in reinforcements for this one. I can cope with it all by myself. And three, no hangover, no after effects whatsoever. Because I'm sure you know as well as I do, viewers, there are absolutely no side effects from eating baked beans whatsoever. Not a one.
So with breakfast finished, we'll wash our tin, take the label off, and then cut the bottom off with a tin opener. That'll allow all the heat from that globe, gives it somewhere to go, so it'll just go up and out. So we'll give our new shroud a bit of a test run, and it's working pretty well. So just figure out how high I need it to go, and then we need to mount this bracket up. So behind the tank there's some 15mm pipe running along. So what I did, I got a 15mm T-piece and cut the bottom out of it. And what's that is going to allow us to do, that'll clip onto that pipe, and then our light stand will just slot into the top. So it'll clip on like that. Beautiful. Now with our light stand all mounted up, just a matter of fitting our shroud. We'll do that. I punched 2 holes in the side and then just a bit of this black coated wire, and we'll run that over the top and it'll hold it on. So we just fit that over, then pull it up tight, twitch it up, and it's done. Now I think that turned out pretty well. Looks very flash, and it'll light up our plants and our tanks. This is what it's like with the tank lights off, and there it's on. I think that looks pretty good. And now just to finish it off, I'm going to put a piece of plastic. This is just builder's plastic that you use underneath a concrete slab. We'll run that over the top and just darken that back and hide those pots a bit. And this is what it looks like before and after. So now it's just a matter of waiting for the stars of the show to arrive. So if you want Apistogramma in Australia, the place to go is Blackwater Aquariums up in Sydney. And Matt's is the man up there, and he breeds a lot of his own stuff and supplies locally bred fish as well. And they've got a great variety of Apistos. So I contacted Matt's and we had a bit of back and forth, and then I decided on which variety I wanted to keep. And only a few short days later, I had them sent down to Adelaide so I can pick them up and take them home. That way they're not going to get left in Melbourne for a day. Thank you, Star Trek. And now we've got them home, we'll rip the box open for a quick look. And no, Matt's isn't selling illegal tobacco on the side, that's just a few free Indian almond leaves. Now let's have a look and see what we've got. This will be the male, and he's happy in there. Can't really see, he's very tiny, and there's a small piece of sponge in there for a bit of filtration. And this bag full of weed contains 1 and 2 females, so let's get them into the tank. Now these guys were in breather bags, so I just left them in the fish room to acclimate the temperature. Out of the bag, straight into the tank. And so allow me to introduce my Apistogramma boreali opal. So this is the blue guy, and I just love, the first time I saw one I fell in love with them. I love the shape of the fins, and that blue colour is absolutely beautiful. Now we have a trio, we have 1 male and 2 females, and just like humans, the males have got all the prettiness and attractiveness, and the females are kind of plain. So here's where I would like your input, viewers. I've added some hornwort and some Brazilian pennywort floating in the top and planted, and I'm not 100% sure if I really want to go with it. So you let me know what you think, or did it look better before without any of the greenery in it? So now I'll just leave you with a bit of footage of the tank and my beautiful new little Apistos. And down below I'll leave links to all those channels I mentioned earlier, and stay to the end and make sure you click on the how I made that DIY background, because it's a bit of an interesting one. Well viewers, if you like leaving likes, leave a like, and as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Nice. I like that.
I'm going to die.
Oh, nice.